always looking for a way to cover up the long-term pain with temporary satisfaction.
Whoa. Hold up. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a conversation with Matthew. I'm Matthew Sanchez, and I am so glad. I'm so glad I can shout. I'm so glad that you chose this particular time out of your day to spend with me. Listen, my intention with every single episode that you hear on this podcast is always to plant a seed of inspiration in the hopes that it grows into your transformation. I'm all about self-development, and I'm all about encouraging people. So if you like what you've heard and you like the movement, share it. Because like Dr. Maya Angelou says, when you learn, you teach. When you get, you give. Thank you so much.
Brought to you by MSW Productions.
So you don't know about this, but Scout. Oh,
I woke up to this morning.
you did? Yeah, I thought this would be a great introduction. Ooh. You like that?
I like that.
I know.
I feel like I'm in Miami, waking up.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the man.
The myth.
The man. The man himself. Pastor Kyle. Okay, I just wanted to start us off something funny, but
That's good.
listen, Pastor Kyle, I know you were not officially the first one on my podcast, but listen, you this thing comes in waves. Like I don't have say so on who comes. It just happens organically.
Yeah, no, thankful to be on in the first year, Matthew. So
But I'm excited to have you on.
so excited to be on with you, man. Love
Yeah.
you, believe in you, proud of you. So,
Yeah. Well, listen, I got to tell people how we met because it is a funny story. So I was leaving one church, right? I was in transition, but you didn't know this. So I was downtown at Iron Bank.
Yeah.
Because at the time I had a TV show with CTV Beam in Phoenix City, Alabama.
Yep.
And the lady who I was in the meeting with had a tea company that she wanted to sponsor the show with. Anyway, so here you come, you walking down, right? You just walking, and you happen to know her like you knew everybody. And you introduced me to what I know now. I didn't know that then, the first motion night.
Yeah.
And I come in and I'm serving and I'm waving at the kids and you pull me. You remember this?
Yeah, you weren't supposed to be serving. So
Right.
you were supposed to be with me, and I turn around and you're gone. You're at the front door waving to people, greeting people. I'm like, Matthew,
Yes.
come here. Iron Bank.
Yeah.
I think I called you Iron Bank. I was like,
Yes,
Iron
you
Bank,
did.
get over here.
You did. You
Yeah.
did. And I just remember in that moment that was so special to me because like I was so used to this serving at a church. I never had nobody like just tell me, hey, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We just want you here.
Yeah.
Like that was it. So then a couple of months, I had come for like a month or two, and every time, it never failed. Every single time church was over, you would either find me or I would find you, but mostly you would find me because I was hiding, and you would give me a hug and ask me how I was doing. And you asked me several times to meet, but I always turned you down. Or at least I said, I'll get back with you, but I never did.
You didn't.
But in that moment, I felt seen. I felt heard. And I remember, right? When I made the decision that Church of the Highlands would be my home church is when I had stopped coming for a couple of months, probably a month or two. And I came to Man's Night. And you, at the end of Man's Night, you walked up to me like you normally do. And you gave me a hug. And you whispered in my ear. You said that. You did. You don't remember this, but I remember this vividly.
I'm just more grateful that all of our podcast listeners know that I whispered in your ear.
You whispered in my ear and you said, you're safe here. That meant a lot to me. That you seen me first, and then somehow you knew I was battling with something, because that big church I was part of was a lot. It was a big transition, and I never forget that. So it was you.
Well,
you were the guy.
Yeah, I think most people are one conversation, one person away from believing in them.
Yeah.
One person just being intentional with somebody from really moving towards what God's got for them, or toward their future, or towards the next step in their life. I think so many people get stuck, or they get hurt, or they feel unseen, and then they actually carry that. That's their MO for the rest of their life. So
absolutely.
I live under the impression that, one comment, one conversation, one I believe in you, one invite can really change the course of somebody's life. So that's all I was doing that day, was being faithful to what I feel like God's asked me to do, called me to do. And I always pray and ask God to let me see somebody, like let me see one person that needs that. And it might not happen in that moment. It might happen 2 weeks later. It might happen 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
But I'm always asking for that opportunity.
Yeah, it was definitely spirit led, because it happened right. Everything just happened right on time. I remember in my transition from the church I was attending, we had sat down. I think it was the day before my birthday or on my birthday. I forget, but I know it was my birthday was close. And you looked me in my eyes, because I was struggling with how I was going to transition. And you looked me in my eyes and you said,
"How you leave one season,
and it's how you enter the next."
Yep.
And that has stayed with me. And I have passed that on to so many people. But that has been probably the best advice I've ever heard when transition is involving any experience.
Yeah, I was just talking to a couple last night that I've been walking the journey with, and just told them, how you end this season is how you'll enter the next. And I think God's looking for people that will honor even when honor might not be deserved, because God honors the honorable. I think we live in a world that's always looking to get equal, always looking to make sure that everybody that's around them knows that what's happening to them is unfair.
Yeah.
And whether unfair, fair, somewhere in between, I think that God just calls us to honor all people. And so if there are people in your life, if there are people in your workplace, if there's people in your church, you have to go back and look at the 90% that was great.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get so concentrated on the 10% that was bad or hard or sad, or where we felt rejected or pushed out or forgotten about. And I've learned that if you look at the 90% that was great, you can leave that season great. You can honor people even if you feel like they're not honorable. I had a mentor tell me one time, honor people up into the line of authenticity. So if you're walking on a cliff and you get all the way to the end of the cliff, you honor people to the edge of authenticity.
Break that down for me, because break that down. You honor people. When you say honor people, you're talking about people that have done you wrong? Or okay.
Yeah, I think in a season of transition, most people are transitioning. 90% of the time, people are transitioning because something happened that is forcing a transition. Rarely do you meet people that's like, no, we just decided to change job. Everything was great. Or we changed church because everything was great. Or we're changing friend groups because everything was great. Most people transition because something happened, offense got in, something was done wrong, a hurt happened, unforgiveness was unavailable from one side or the other. So people transition. And I think when you're on the other side of that transition, when you're the one transitioning, most of the time, again, there's a reason why you are.
Yeah.
And I think most people struggle honoring people from that transition because they're concentrating on the 10% that was wronged in that season instead of looking at the 90% that was great.
Yeah.
So when you think about the 90% of great, the investment, the things you learned, the care that you had, the opportunities that people gave you, the memories that you made, I think if you concentrate on that, you can honor authentically when people ask you, why are you leaving that place? Or why are you guys not in relationship anymore? Or why are you transitioning from this church to the next church? I think you can honor well and it be authentic in it because you're actually honoring from the 90% of good.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about the 10% that was bad, your honoring actually feels unauthentic because it's fake because you've got the 10% in mind. So again, it's how you view it. If you view and when people ask, why are you leaving? Think about the good things, honor those from the past. And then I try to teach people not to use the word that I'm leaving or I left. Anytime you leave something, it's usually negative. So anytime you move towards something, it's usually positive.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people that are leaving churches or leaving friend groups, like, I left that. I'm like, well, why don't, but now you're in a new season. So why don't you just tell people you move towards? Because anytime you say you left something, you have to tell a negative story of why you left. Anytime you say you're moved towards something, you get to tell the positive story of what's happening in your life now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope that all ties together with authenticity.
Absolutely.
It's what you focus on allows your honoring to be authentic, and what you move towards allows your conversation to stay positive.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good. Okay, great. So where did you learn all that? Because I know before you got to Church of the Highlands, you were at another church too. For how long were you in a leadership position there?
10 years.
10 years. So
Yeah.
This is not your first rodeo working with people and being in ministry. I mean, obviously you've been in ministry longer than 10 years, I think.
Sure.
But who taught you those great values of leadership, basically?
Well, great lessons and great values of leadership always come on the other side of learning what you wish you would have done better. So through a season of transition to the church that we're at now, I learned that I was so focused on the negative part of what happened at the end of that great season that I missed out on 9.5 years of opportunity to be thankful for, to have gratitude towards, to honor towards. And I had a mentor, a pastor from Washington, D.C., that's an author that I look up to, that has been in my life for now 15 years.
Yeah.
And I called him during that transition, and he just said, Kyle, honor up into the edge of authenticity. He said, you're an authentic person, so you need to start getting some things in your mind that allow you to say things out of authenticity that you're thankful for, instead of faking the authenticity because you're so focused on the negative. And I wish I would have done that a little better earlier on in that transition. I think I did it really well at the end of it and post it.
Yeah.
And then I stopped, and then I was at our corporate offices in Birmingham, Alabama, our central offices, we call them. And one of the lead team members of our church was asking me the question again about just my transition from where I was at to where I am now.
Yeah.
And I said, I left blank church. And he said, well, stop saying, he's like, why do you keep saying you left there instead of saying you came to Church of the Highlands? And I just honestly, just out of ignorance, was like, because I left there.
Yeah.
And he's like, right. But every time you say I left there, you have to rehash the story of why you left there.
Yeah.
Instead of telling people why you moved towards Church of the Highlands, which keeps the story very positive on why you're excited to be
and
here.
Then people don't have a bad taste in their mouth about the other church, because people will probably create their own scenarios and stuff like that based on your attitude towards it.
Well, and part of the healing process when you have transition from somewhere is talking about what God's doing now instead of talking about what people did to you then.
Because you stay stuck.
Yeah.
You stay stuck if you continue to think about all the bad and everything.
Yeah, people like to hang out in their pain.
Why do you think people do that?
They like to sit down. I think we live in a world that, especially in the next generation, maybe some of your targeted audience that's listening to this podcast is we've grown up in a world where, your identity is found in the likes, the comments, the followers. So when I actually sit down in my pain, it makes people feel sorry for me. It makes people feel bad for me. And even though that's not the right emotion, it still makes people focus on you. So when people are focused on me, I feel better, but that's pride.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't define that as pride naturally. Pride would be more, I think we define pride sometimes more like what the definition of arrogance is. But pride is not always being high on self. Sometimes it's being low on self to get attention. Anything we do that tries to draw attention to ourself other than the greater thing we're trying to do or the greater thing that we serve is pride.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, myself included, have sat down in my pain for too long because we like the attention that we get while we're there.
Now, do you think we do that because we don't know better, or is it just something we automatically just do?
Yeah, I think most people would never say I do that because I like the attention. So I think most people,
because they don't know that they're doing that.
Most people's intentions are great. They got hurt, something happened. They don't know how to get out of this feeling they're in. They don't know how to get out of bed and get their shoes on and start moving towards the next season of their life. So I don't think people do it on purpose.
Right.
I think it is just a reaction, though, that a lot of people, I'm getting more text messages. I'm getting more people commenting on my negative posts that I put out. So the attention I like because I'm in a season where I transitioned for something. So the relationships there changed. So now all these people caring about me via text, via phone call, via commenting, covers up the emotion of the pain. We're always looking for a way to cover up the long-term pain with temporary satisfaction.
Whoa. Hold up. Pastor Kyle, I knew it. I knew it. I almost put a sound effect button on here for every time you said something that was something like that. Break that down. Say that one more time. You said we often...
Human nature is that we are always trying to find temporary satisfaction to cover up long-term pain. So whether that be some of us had something happen and we find substances to help us to have a great time for 3 or 4 hours, but we wake up the next morning and the pain's still there.
Yeah.
but we covered it up for 4 hours. For some of us, we're sitting down in our pain through a transition. So we put negative things out on social media, and all those comments and likes for a 2-hour window.
It's almost like dopamine.
It is.
It feeds our dopamine levels.
It covers up the long-term pain by making us feel good, but feeling good never heals anything.
Hey, get out of my business. Okay, you in my business. Get out of my business. Okay, all right. So,
and not that all of that is bad.
No, right.
But the question is, when are you going to move from temporary satisfaction and actually deal with what happened? Because once you deal with what happened, then your identity is not found in what people are saying about you in your pain. Your identity is found in the next season you're moving towards.
Right. Okay, you said a lot, Pastor Cal. Tell me exactly what we should do to heal the pain correctly. Like, how should we heal the pain correctly other than what we've been doing?
I think the one thing that most people don't do, and
well, let's just be clear. A lot of, for young people, so because everybody who's listening, a lot of their pain comes from relationships.
Yep.
Maybe daddy's not there. Yeah. Maybe mom is there, but like very nasty or whatever, right? So we know that those are the things that relationship are the main
I wouldn't
point.
even say mostly. I think it's safe to say that 100% of the pain we walk through is relational.
Right.
Rarely do I sit down with anybody in my office or have a conversation with somebody at a coffee shop or have a conversation in the back hallway at church where what they're walking through is something that either one, they inflicted on themselves relationally or someone inflicted on them relationally. Right. So it might not be 100%, but it's 90+% of the pain that people have in their lives is relational.
Right. So what you're saying is that oftentimes what we do as people is that we try to heal, we try to use temporary things to heal a pain that really needs something more than just temporary. We try to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, right? Basically. So how should we heal?
Yeah, I think 3 things. These will come off the top of my head here a little bit. I think 1, sitting down with somebody face to face that you can trust and be honest with is always going to be greater than putting things out on social media. Because sitting with someone that you trust, 1, they're willing to listen to you, but they're also, secondly, able to speak some truth into you.
Yeah.
On social media, nobody's going to speak truth to you in your pain. They're going to feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
So you get a ton of people that don't really know you, making you feel better about yourself temporarily. But when you sit across from someone that cares about you, they will listen to you and adhere you in your feelings, but also tell you where.
Right. I was just going to say that because people on social media are always on your side.
Correct.
They're never on a middle. Right.
And the ones that aren't, you're not going to listen to anyway.
Right.
So,
right.
So I think 1 is one-on-one community,
Yep.
not social media when you're walking through pain.
Yeah.
I think secondly, it's the ability to identify your part in it. I rarely sit with anybody, even if it's just 5%, 10%. That I don't think that we ever actually slow down enough to identify what part in this transition, what part of this pain, what part of this relational hurt was my doing, what was my part in it.
Right.
Because a huge part in relational healing is also being able to forgive yourself for even the 10%, 50%, or 100% if it was your fault, is just realizing you had a part to play in it.
Right.
Which takes all the focus off of the other person and puts a little bit of focus on you, on what you could have done better. I don't meet very many people that are willing to do that. It's always somebody else's fault.
Like here's how I think about it. Like we get to see how people interact with us and other people. We get to see how they love, and then at the end of the day, we still choose to participate in it or don't participate in it. So to think that you had nothing to do with the breakup.
Again, from a biblical standpoint, we've all fallen short.
Right. Absolutely.
So to think relationally, when we're 2 people that aren't going to be perfect, that we're going to have things come up in our life, whether it's pride, insecurities, expectations that weren't met, offense over a relational time period, whether it be a work relationship, a friendship, a church relationship. Yeah. There's going to be some part that you played in relational hurt majority of the time. There are cases where that's not true. So if you're listening today and something was inflicted on you and there was a small relationship there, but it was 100% somebody did something to you that hurt you, that's different. But majority of the time when it's relationships that have been around for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and there's relational hurt, there is a part that both parties played in it. And if you can sit down and put the focus on self, the Bible says stop trying to take the speck out of someone else's eye when there's a log in your own
eye. Right.
When you can do that, forgiveness comes quicker for the other party when you realize you played a part in it. When you think that it was 100% somebody else, it's very hard and or takes longer to get to that forgiveness place. So one, I think you need to be able to sit with somebody that can listen to you and adhere you, but also tell you truth, not just social media. Right. Secondly, I think you need to find the percentage that you played in it. Right. And then through that healing process of you realizing the places you could have gotten better, the places where you need to ask for forgiveness, the places you need to forgive yourself. Yeah. And as you learn and heal through that, I think the third part of really getting through relational hurt is getting back to doing what you were doing before that hurt came. So,
even if it's bad? Even if what you were doing was bad?
No, I'm speaking more on the side of if you've stopped doing what you feel like God's called you to do, if you've stopped doing what you feel like you're gifted to do.
Got it.
If you've
That's a sign. That's a red flag.
If you've stopped moving towards the things that you had planned for your future, or the things you know God has spoken to you about your future, if those things have paralyzed you from moving forward, there is something to getting back up and moving towards relationships. If you don't have friendships because the last ones hurt you, at some point you've got to trust to build relationships again. Yeah. If you left a church and there was hurt there, at some point you got to trust the new place that you're in and get moving in that direction again and start serving. If it's something in the workplace that you got demoted or fired, but you know that's what you're supposed to do for a career, at some point you got to get up and go fill out the job application and get back to work, even if you start at a lower level than you were at the time before, because you know that's what you're supposed to do. I think so many people, either one, get paralyzed for such a long time and they attach themselves back to something they were doing, but they never move towards at the pace in which they were moving before. Yeah. Or two, they completely walk away from it and they miss something that maybe God called them to do in their life because they would never walk through and completely heal from the season before.
Yeah. Okay. So now you've given us what we should do. This sounds backwards, but you just make me think about it. What are some red flags that we should see in relationships that may cause us to like really harm us? What are some red flags that you've noticed through your many conversations with young people about relationships?
Yeah, I think that we expect too much out of people.
Okay.
I think the number one place where people get hurt is miss expectations. They had expectations of somebody that were never communicated, and then that person didn't meet them, and now they're hurt, and that person doesn't even know it. Right. So I think that we attach ourselves to people. Yeah. We expect people to be at our awakening call. We expect people to go above and beyond for us because we did for them, which is pride, because we don't serve people so that we can come back and we can be served by that.
Like, we don't do something in the hopes of you doing something for me.
Correct. That would be actually defined as pride, is that I helped you move and then you didn't help me move. Right. And now I hold it against you. Right. So I just think I think the expectations we have of people is way too high sometimes. And I think we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. So in my opinion, with relationships, I think our expectations of people should come down, especially early on in relationships. Now, as friendships grow and they get deeper and they go longer, expectations rise. Yeah. But I'm speaking early on in relationships, dating relationships, friendships, church friends, and pastors or even new bosses. The expectations are way too high sometimes early on. And I think that your expectations are never communicated to those people. So then when they don't meet them, you hold that against them. And that's always where I see hurt come in.
Well, that's not fair. Yeah. That's not fair to them.
No, it's not.
Yeah. All right. So let's say that from a leader standpoint, let's set this scenario, and I have to do ministry because that's your field and that's all I know to ask you right now. And let's go. Tell me something else. Let's say that you are a youth pastor and your young person is going through something. As a leader, what should be the first thing you should how should you approach the situation as a leader if your young person is going through something, or maybe they're dealing with relationship hurt? How would you approach this situation? I know you said talk, but I just feel like there's a leader listening to this too that doesn't know how to handle certain situations like this.
Yeah, well, I think it translates into the business world. If you're a boss, a department head, you're a coach, or a teacher in a school, and I think there's appropriate ways to approach all of those based on the role that you're in at the organization you're a part of. Okay. So If there's a teenage girl that you can tell is relationally hurt, your male youth pastor approaching that, it might not be the best scenario. So in that situation, I would have, we should connect them to someone. He should connect them to another female that's older than them, even a motherly figure. If you're a boss at a workplace and a young female in your office has gone through a divorce, you as the CEO, as a male CEO, male president of the company, swooping in and being there for her during that divorce is probably not the wisest thing that you want to do, because you're getting caught up in emotion. So I think so much of how you would help, so much of how you help people should start with integrity. I think sometimes our heart gets ahead of our head a little bit, and our heart to help people can actually put us in unhealthy situations with people that now expect something from us, and then we want to help them, and all of a sudden there's emotion tied to it, and it can take us in places that aren't good.
Right.
I think, number one, as a leader, you need to identify, man, they seem off, and there must be something going on.
Right.
I think in healthy organizations, they care enough about their employees, or they care enough about their customers. For us, we care enough about, in your opinion, a student, a young person that might be going through something. So to actually ask them, hey, what's going on in your life, is a great question. Is there anything I can do to help you outside of work? Is there anything going on outside of the office that's actually affecting your time in the office?
Right.
And then as that stuff is shared, again, I think integrity from a leadership standpoint of a department head, a boss, a CEO, a pastor should always sweep in to go, who's the best person to help them through this process? As a male pastor, if there's a male going through something, then I have no issues of sitting with them. But I actually have filters for females, and we have great female leaders in our church. We have great female small group leaders, great female staff members, that they're going to be the better person to sit with somebody like that.
That's so important, but it is, you have to kind of know as a leader that there are certain things you just can't properly speak to, that, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like you have to decrease a little bit. And
when you got people listening that are in the corporate world, there's going to be different rules there than if you own a private company here in town.
Right.
You've got single department heads and single CEOs, and you've got married ones, and you've got single employees, and you got married ones, and you got ones going through divorce, and you got ones that are in so again, and that's for me where I come into, when, you mentioned earlier, spirit-led leadership, as a Christ follower. If you're running a business, or you're a pastor, or you're doing anything in between, allowing the Holy Spirit to guide you on how to care for them is way more, he'll put up some red flags, he'll put up some stop signs, he'll put up some green lights to go, yes, care for them. I think the goal is that everyone that works for you, whether in the business world, the nonprofit world, the church world, knows that they're cared about more as a person than for what they can do for you. Most organizations are more worried about, as long as you're doing something for me, I really, I'm not going to get involved in how the rest of your life is going. I think healthy organizations do a little different. I care more about you than what you can do for me. So when someone you can tell is not doing well, getting involved is the right thing. I just think there need to be procedures, there need to be boundaries, and there need to be other connections you can make to them. Just because you're the leader doesn't mean you're the only one that can help them.
That's so good. So good. What do you think the biggest mistake leaders or young leaders, I'm not particularly talking about age, because anybody can be a young leader. What do you think the biggest mistake they make?
I think the biggest mistake that young leaders make is that they're always thinking through how other people can do something for me, instead of me thinking about what I can do to add value to other people. So whether you're a one-person show running a business that's all you, or whether you're a young CEO, department head, sports coach, or pastor, the temptation is always trying to get people to do something to grow what you're doing, instead of you trying to figure out a way that you add value to people to help them figure out what they're doing. And I think that comes with age. I think it comes with aspirations to grow something, to build something, to make something big, to make money, to have more followers. So I need to get people to do something for me. I need people to follow me. I need people to get my vision. I need people to come volunteer for me. Instead of flipping that on its head. And real servant leadership is going, yes, I've got something, I've got vision, I've got something I need people to help move forward for me, but I'm going to start in those relationships by going, what can I do for you?
That's really good.
Which is counterintuitive to how we would think in the world today, because it feels like a waste of time.
Really?
I've got something I need to move the ball down the field on, and I'm going to try to figure out what I can do for you. That's not how we naturally wake up and think.
Why do you think that? Because of the way the world is, or why do you think we have that kind of mindset about leadership or anything like that?
Well, again, as a Christ follower and as a pastor, I'm always going to lean into that side. I think that we there's sin in our life. So yes, we're Christ followers. We're forgiven of our sin, but it doesn't mean that there's not sin there. So I think there's always a tendency to have a little bit of selfishness, always a tendency to have a little pride, always a tendency to have a little bit of me going on. That's why you wake up every morning, and the goal of being a Christ follower is to go, how do I help people today be everything that God's called them to be? Yeah. And then in the old, what goes around comes around, or it's going to come back to you. If I invest into other people, then I just believe
that always works.
And I believe God's going to honor me in that, because God's asked me to invest in others to point them to Him. And as I do that, things that are in my heart, I think that He's just going to bless, open doors, and give opportunity that I can't open on my own.
Yeah. How did you learn that? Did you make mistakes as a young leader and you just naturally learned that, or how did you become the great leader you are today? Because I do think you're a good leader.
Thank you.
I do a lot of watching. Like, I may not always say things, but I do.
You don't always say things?
No.
What podcast am I listening to?
Wait a minute.
Whose podcast are we on?
Wait a minute. I mean, what I mean is,
you're an incredible observer.
Right. I observe.
You're very discerning.
I observe a lot.
I agree.
And I'm such a feeler too. Like, I feel not everything, but mostly.
You have a discernment for what's healthy and what's not, and what people are feeling and what they're not feeling. So I think everybody knows that.
And so because I am that way, I know that you're a great leader. And I've seen you. You just made me think of this. Okay. So Pastor Chris, we all know Pastor Chris. Pastor Chris Hodges, who's a pastor of Church at the Highlands, who don't know, he has a podcast called Grow Leader.
Yep.
And in that podcast, I'm not sure who said it, but they said that a leader is not great because they can tell people or inspire people to do things. A leader is great because they are not afraid to show you who they are. Mm-hmm. And he referenced, I think he told a story about him crying one time. Mm-hmm. And I think one of people, somebody new on the team was so shocked because they had never been used to a leader crying like that. So I know that I've seen not all sides of you, but I've seen enough to know that you're a great leader. Oh. How did you become so good at this leadership thing?
If you're listening to this and you're in your 20s or 30s and you think you aren't making mistakes in whatever it is that you're leading, you're probably lying to yourself. Now, let me say it this way. You are lying to yourself.
Well, slap them in the face.
So, because I made them, I don't know a 20-year-old that's not making them. I've never led a 20-something-year-old or even an early 30-something-year-old that's not making them.
But mistakes are not bad, though.
And the truth is, in your 40s and 50s and 60s, you're going to make them, because leadership's hard. Leadership is not about not making mistakes. Leadership is about learning from your mistakes and then trying to take that and then figuring out how you become a better leader, not for self, but for others. And I think, again, if you're listening and you're a young leader today, that leadership 101 is not about me. It's about others.
That's good.
I don't get up every day going, what can I accomplish today? What can I do today to make my brand move forward, my thing go forward, my vision move forward? Yeah. I wake up every day, and it was Pastor Chris's father-in-law, Billy Hornsby, that said this, and I heard it 15 years ago, and he said, my greatest success in life is not my own, it's someone else's. Yeah. And I just think if you do that, you're going to build relationships. You're going to have opportunities that you could never come up with on your own. God always does things through relationship. So if I lead in a way that's relational, if I lead in a way that pushes other people forward, like Matthew, your success is way more important to me than mine. And I don't think most people believe that. So you have to prove that. You have to model that. Like my youth pastor, Josh, his success in our organization, in our church, is way more important than my promotion in our church. Liz Dewberry, our dream team director, her success in what God's called her to do and the dreams she has in her life and what she wants to accomplish really is greater than what I can and want to accomplish. Like I am not getting up every day working, trying to get somewhere. I'm waking up every day trying to help other people get somewhere.
It sounds like it's less of me, but more of them.
Which is in the Bible, less of me, more of God. And in my leadership, less of me, more of Him, less of me, more for them. Yeah. And again, I don't get it perfect all the time. And I don't think any leader does. But I think, again, if you're a young leader listening, the tendency is to think, what can I do today to push down the ball down the field and what I'm doing, what I'm dreaming about, what I want to accomplish. And you need to do that. There's still some things you need to do to accomplish what you're doing, but never at the stake of using people, manipulating people, pulling people in, and then,
that's not leadership.
And then dropping them after they've done something for you. And that's the tendency I see with a lot of young leaders is once you've done something for me or you can't do anything for me, I move on to the next person that can.
How do you know that you're called by God to be a leader? I think that's the biggest struggle for young people. They don't know what they're called to.
Sure. I think sometimes young leaders are too worried about what they're called to too early.
Okay.
Like I think I see a lot of young people, they're so caught up with what I'm called to instead of just waking up and being faithful what God's called them to right now.
Oh.
So they're more worried about their bigger calling and they're missing out on the right now calling.
That was good.
And I think God, especially if you're a Christ follower listening to this room, then God has given you a right now calling. Yeah, but it's not what I feel called to, but he's given you a right now calling.
Yeah.
But it's not what I see in my head, right, but he's given you a right now calling.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the story of Joseph. Joseph had a dream.
Yeah.
He got thrown into a pit. He ends up in Potiphar's house.
Yeah.
He gets thrown into a dungeon for doing something he didn't do. And now it's years into this dream that he sees that God's called him to do something and he's not doing it. But you know what got Joseph to the fulfillment of the dream? It was using his gifts in the dungeon when nobody was watching. He interprets a dream when nobody's around that can even do anything with seeing what he can do and the gifts God's given him and the vision that God's given him for his life. He used his gifts when nobody was watching. So when you have a vision in your heart, when you have a calling that you feel like God's called you to, and you're more concerned about getting to that than you are about using the gifts God's given you right now in this part of your calling, it's very possible that God's looking more for faithfulness and not fast.
Listen, y'all need to see my face because I'm just.
It's as pretty as always, Matthew.
Like, this is good stuff, PK.
I just hit the mic. I got so excited. Mic going down. Mic going down.
That's okay.
It's like I've never done this before.
That's okay. You got to fix the mic now. Jesus. See, the spirit. You're so good. The mic didn't fell out. You had to hold the spirit moment. No, this is good because, man, like, I can't tell you how many young people I talk to on a day-to-day basis who are my age, a little bit younger, who are so concerned about what God's going to call them to. That's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to simplify it. Like, get up every day, do something for one person.
Yeah.
Make one person's day, life, week, work, vision, like one person a day. Like, do something that pushes somebody forward. Well, Kyle, how can I do that? Like, I can't go work for somebody for free. No, but you can encourage someone in their calling via text message for free.
Yeah.
You can make a call on the way home from work to somebody to encourage them on something you saw them do on social media or something that you hear they've been doing to say, man, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Anything I can ever do to add value to that, let me know.
Yeah.
So every day, wake up and push somebody else forward. Every day, get 1% better.
Yeah.
Whether that's reading a chapter of a book, listening to a podcast like yours, Matthew, getting involved in a church, into a small group, going to counseling, whatever that 1% better is a day, and then do one thing every day that pushes the ball down the field and what you feel like God's called you to do, whether you're actually doing it right now or not. And then the fourth thing that you need to do every day is whatever you're doing right now, whether you're waiting tables, working at an electrical contracting company, you're in the Army, you're in school, whatever it is that you're doing, do one thing that day that makes what you're doing, like, add value to that one thing that you're doing in this season. So wake up every morning, add value to somebody else's calling. Wake up every day and add value to the place that you're in this season. Wake up every day and add value to the calling that you feel like God's given you. And then whatever the fourth one was, add value to that area as well. And that's 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. That's a great day. You do that 23, 24 days a month and take the weekends off. You'll look up and you will get there faster than you did.
And God's going to call you. I believe, listen, this kind of just fell on me. Like, this is not what I thought I was going to do. But it was because I was so faithful with serving where I was serving at the church I was at so much that I think it was more than one person that told me, listen, you got a really good gift of speaking into people, which I had no idea that was a gift. And now over time, it's 5 years later, and now I got all this. You know what I mean? Like, this was nothing planned. I think in the midst of you doing that as a young leader who maybe like trying to figure out what you're called to, then like something will happen. You'll get
stop
injected with something.
overthinking about where you should be and be faithful with where you are.
Yeah.
And again, if I'm Matthew Sanchez, I'm getting up. You've already done one thing today. You've recorded this podcast, which pushes down the field what you feel like God's called you to long term.
Yeah.
Wherever it is that you're working, you're going to go there and add value for the 6 hours you're working, 4 hours you're working today.
Yeah.
You're going to read a book, listen to a podcast, or listen to something that adds value to your learning and growing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to push somebody else forward. Like before the day's over with, text somebody, call somebody, DM somebody that tells them you're proud of them, you're praying for them, anything you can do to add value to their life. That's a great day. And you do that 21, 24, 25 days a month, you're going to look up and you're going to be to where you feel like God's called you to be on the bigger side way faster than if you just sit around staying paralyzed and disappointed that you're not there already.
Man, that's so good. I hope y'all ain't missing that. I hope they ain't missing that, Pastor Kyle, because if they don't get it here, I don't know what's going to take, because it is a struggle. All right, last couple of questions. What's a book you're reading right now? Oh, no, not a book you're reading. What's a book you would recommend to a young person, or maybe just about relationships and leadership? I don't know if there's a book. Yeah,
there's one that I'm reading right now that I would recommend incredibly, highly, based on those two questions. It would be Trust by Henry Cloud. Henry Cloud is the number one psychiatrist in the country that is a consultant for Fortune 100 CEOs.
Okay.
He's also a Christ follower. So Trust by Henry Cloud.
Okay.
How to gain trust, how to regain trust, how to know when not to trust. And that's relational and business side of things. That is family, and it is friendship, and it is corporate. So it's just an incredible read.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll put a link in the bio for people who want to see that. One advice. Well, what's the best advice around this topic that you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
Which topic?
About leadership. Well, you can do both, leadership and relationship. What's the best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it through the thread of the podcast on the leadership side, which is it's someone else's success is greater than your own.
Okay. Yep. And that was Pastor Chris's.
And when you figure that out, by Billy Hornsby, who started the ARC, the Association of Related Churches, a church planting organization, that other people's success, other people getting to plant their church and thriving, was more successful than anything I could do on my own.
Yeah.
And when you build relationships and you push other people forward, it's the greatest leadership advice. It's so countercultural and it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So you have to work at it. You have to figure it out. You have to ask great questions to understand it. But you can start as small as choosing every single day, Monday through Friday, to text someone.
And you're going to fail.
And you're going to miss it some days. But it doesn't have to be big. It can be small.
Right.
I think you would say on the podcast, there's been numerous times where I've texted you and just said, "Hey, Matthew, proud of you.
Yes.
Keep striving, keep moving forward, keep going after it." And I didn't push your business down the field in that moment. You didn't make more money because of that. You didn't gain more followers. But if that was spirit-led, that I texted you on that day because the night before you had a horrible night, or the day before something flopped that you were trying to lead or move forward, and that motivates you to keep going, then technically
that's
I pushed
enough,
you forward that day.
That's worth more than any workshop you can go through to try to get re-inspired or anything, honestly.
Yeah, and again, pat me on the back here. I don't mean for it to sound this way, but I'm not recording this podcast today for me. I'm recording it because of you.
Well, I think
I honestly could care less. I mean, I don't want anything from this. I'm not gonna. I don't care if one person follows me on social media because of this. I'm doing this because I believe in what you feel called to do, and if this can add value to the people you feel called to add value to, then I'm going to do it. It wasn't even a hesitation. We texted, and within 48 hours, we're doing it because I believe in you.
Wow.
I have no idea what that will return to me one day, and I don't expect it to return anything to me because if it doesn't, then pride comes up. I'm just doing it because I believe in you. And if you'll lead that way with people you're in relationship with, I just think that God's faithful to honor you as well. Yeah. And then the best advice on the relational side, so that's the leadership side, the relational side would be build life-giving relationships in the seasons that you don't even feel like you need them because there's a season coming where they will be life. I think when seasons are going well, we're busy, we're succeeding, we're striving, we tend to not slow down to make sure we have good relationships around us.
Right.
And everybody listening to this podcast, sometime between now and the next 365 days, something's going to happen in your life that's unexpected, and you're going to need those relationships. So if you want to be able to always continue to persevere, the Bible says, towards everything that God's called you to do, if you don't want to lose too much time in those seasons, you already have built those relationships for that time that happens that you can't see, instead of trying to figure out how to build them once it's happened. And then if you don't have them, you isolate and you look up and you lose 6 months, you lose a year, you lose 2 years of what you could be doing because you didn't have anybody to pull. The Bible says that you need somebody to pick you up off the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that the greatest relationship advice I've ever gotten is never let your success pull you away from the thing that can make you the most successful, which is life-giving relationships.
Pascal, you just keep dropping bombs. That is good. I've never heard it like that. I mean, I've heard people go like chase community, but I've never heard it in that way.
Well, success sometimes what happens is that we only get people around us that can make us more successful.
Yeah.
Or we can make them more successful.
Yeah.
But then when we can't give them that anymore, those relationships fade. Instead of just building relationships that are life-giving because we care about each other, we have similar interests.
Yeah.
We give time to each other even when we don't have time. So I think that's the biggest piece that I see people missing when they're striving and being successful. They forget about the very thing that gives them life, which is life-giving relationships that don't want anything from you.
That's all I can say right now. That's all I can say. That was a lot. That was so good. Pastor Kyle, thank you. Really. Thank you so much.
Love you.
I love you. I really do. This means a lot to me that you would take time to encourage the listeners in the way that you do. But more than anything, you're like, you know what? You're like, and I probably said this to you before, but you're like the kind of friend everybody deserves. Really, like you're so present with people. I've seen you in the lobby space and just with a lot of people around, and you're so present with that one person you're talking to, which means a lot to me because it shows that you see them, and people always want to know, do you see me, and did what I said matter? That's a bottom line for anybody. And you do a wonderful job at making people feel seen and what they've said matter. So thank you for this. Anything else you want to say? No,
man. Love you. Hope this helps everybody. Follow Matthew, share his podcast. And if you need a voiceover for anything, hit him with it, Matthew.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for listening today.
Give him the AMC movie theater.
You're listening to WLMC movie theater. Love you, man.
Peace out.
Jesus.